everybody at once. Yeah. Okay.
The need of a constantly expanding market for its products chases the bourgeois over the entire surface of the globe. It must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere.
So this is the link between what we had before, that drive to expand markets, to increase capital valorization and to gain profit. First, we found upends everything in the imperial centers, in the Western capitalist societies. But now it also has an impact on everybody else. And that's part of it. So this is the transition, but it's still the same. It comes from the same source.
It makes it sound like a capitalism's a parasite, like that movie, which is funny because it is. So it must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere. It's a parasite.
True. It is. It is using that language of infestation.
Other people have borrowed that language since, or it's always been the language, and they just find new people to apply it to.
Like I said before, it's probably a good idea to not do too much biological analogy when talking about social processes, but that given that.
Okay.
Yeah. So who's doing the big paragraph?
I'll do it.
Thanks, Maria.
The bourgeoisie has, through its exploitation of the world market, given a cosmopolitan character to production and consumption in every country. To the great chagrin of reactionists, it has drawn from under the feet of industry the national ground on which it stood. All old established national industries have been destroyed or are daily being destroyed. They are dislodged by new industries that no longer work up indigenous raw material, but raw material drawn from the remotest zones. Industries whose products are consumed not only at home but in every quarter of the globe. In place of the old wants satisfied by the production of the country, we find new wants requiring for their satisfaction the products of distant lands and climes. In place of the old local and national seclusion and self-sufficiency, we have intercourse in every direction, universal interdependence of nations, and as in material, so also in intellectual production. The intellectual creations of individual nations become common property. National one-sidedness and narrow-mindedness become more and more impossible, and from the numerous national and local literatures, there arises a world literature.
Does that speak to any things that people recognize?
Sounds like neoliberalism, kind of.
How?
Globalization, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. That's the whole, that we were having that one argument about it, two sides of the same coin, where it's like the neoliberals especially like kind of will have this idea of globalization, like tolerance, but only economically, like for an economic profit, I think.
Yeah, there's still like, we want all the benefits of all the other cultures and stuff, but we don't want them in our neighborhood.
Yeah, and also we want their resources for us and not pay them good. Like, kind of like
I would liken it to like foodies. Let's go have this ethnic cuisine or this or that or whatever. But why can't they speak English or whatever that is?
Right.
I do what I do here in this language, in the language of this paragraph, is something very similar to I hear proponents of capitalism, where they say this is the benefits of capitalism, is that the interdependence is a way of creating peace. That is their like, hey, like I remember the example of the pencil, like all these pieces of this pencil, different pieces of pencil are made in different places around the world, and it's only through common, through cooperation can this thing be created, and this is a way to generate peace. So I recognize some of the words, just the interdependence that's that's
Yes.
kind of used in capitalist kind of logic.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. And that has a long and proud tradition, and it's not a bad thing. It has the Aristotle in it, like we talked about this, who made that same argument. You know, if people trade, they don't kill each other. It has the cosmopolitan, which is cosmopolitan is a citizen of the world. And that goes to the Enlightenment and Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, who says that in a world where all people are self-governing, there can be no wars. You're familiar with that argument, Immanuel Kant's essay on eternal peace. And of course,
No.
eternal peace is like that great hope of Christianity. You're going to have one big peaceful community of humans. And he's saying, well, we might be close to that because why is there war? Because there is this unjustified power of monarchies who get to tax people, to raise armies, to go to war, to expand their selfish dynastic interest. Now we have republics coming up. In a republic, the people have to be asked to be taxed. And what is done with their tax money? No sane person will ever volunteer for their money that could be used for other purposes to be spent for war. Hence, no two republics will ever go to war with each other. So once you have universal republican government, you'll have world peace. And this is how this is like speaking to the globalization in the 1990s or since then. This is the argument that Francis Fukuyama picks up when he's saying, we've now really reached that point. In the 1840s or in the 1790s, we weren't quite yet there, but now we are there. And it's been updated to be the golden arches theory. No two countries that have a McDonald's restaurant have ever gone to war with each other.
I've heard that, and that sounds stupid.
There's
I think it's too optimistic.
There's like a whole reactionary branch, like very extremely xenophobic far right, that take issue with that specific box of their arguments of globalization and interdependence. And they hate it so much. It's tied up to their immigration fears. And for whatever reason, they really hate the United Nations. And it's kind of something that I ran into on Facebook and Gab and stuff. But it's a very specific reaction to that globalism is good for us. And then they're like, no. But it's pretty.
No, it mixes races. It introduces foreign things. You know, it can't be good. That's the good thing about it, though. I mean, that is, in my opinion, if it mixes stuff up, it is good. But what the optimistic account misses is that capitalism is inherently conflict prone and leads to competition, to military conflict, to violent conflict. And so if you're doing this cosmopolitan commercial, like this universal interchange, universal interdependence under capitalist conditions, it's not going to be peaceful for long, you know.
It's going to be a very unequal power dynamic of interdependence.
Right.
Yeah, and we get like those hierarchies again, capitalism, just on a global level, like how we get our cell phones, but they have like chips made in, like it was child labor and an African mining somewhere, like mining up the pieces for it, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's in South America, and then all the stuff gets sent to Asia, and then slave labor puts it together there, and it comes back, and then we all get a new iPhone.
Yeah.
I guess he didn't. When you mentioned Kant, I haven't read much of him, but if he's saying that no two republics will ever want to go to war with each other, I guess he didn't take into account that maybe a republic will want to invade another country just for its resources, because if it has power.
Even so, he thought that the citizens of the republic that might have the means and the inclination to do that would still think it's not worth their money to fund weapons, because if they could get their hands on something, they could more easily do it peacefully by commerce.
Well, like that, the thing with capitalism is it finds a way to make a profit off something specific. And like, that's like, it's just, they're going to have people making money off the weapons that were used in the war. And that's the whole like, empire of war is kind of, I'm sure at some point sabotaged by just people who want to sell bullets, so.
Yeah, it's like where was I going? Kropotkin, he says like no one's self-made, and we could all agree on that because I think everybody needs help to get to where they are or where they want to be. And nothing's an original thought because other people planted the seeds, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the capitalists are, no, I'm a self-made man. Bezos doesn't tell you about the $300,000 loan he got from his parents to start his damn company. Musk doesn't tell you about being his parents being mine owners and funding his PayPal adventure and stuff like that. They want to put this illusion out there that they did everything themselves.
Or Bill Gates in his garage, where when you look closely, he was attending Stanford and he was studying with professors that were funneling massive Pentagon contracts into research, and he got a chunk of that. Before
and
this,
his parents helped finance him too. Yeah. His dad was a bank president.
And who was it? Steve Jobs was like, he stole Wozniak's invention anyways and sold it as his own. Huh. Wozniak was the one that built the board that they used as the base for the Apple.
Oh, interesting.
Wozniak is actually like not really a capitalist. I think he's actually kind of, I don't know if he's a full communist, but he's definitely not a capitalist. Yeah, and they were supposed to be doing this project where they were gonna, I forget what, but Wozniak was tinkering and was like, "This is cool, look what I made." And Jobs was like, "I'll just take that." and then he basically ripped off Wozniak and everybody who came after him and made a bunch of money off of Wozniak's invention.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Google Wozniak. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the nicer of the two. He actually cares about people, and he cares about like the potential for technology to improve human life. Yeah.
Oh, you know him? You know him too?
Oh yeah, I know a lot of this. There's the one story, and I know we're getting off the topic a little bit, but the one story that to me so it kind of really epitomizes the relationship between Steve Jobs and Wozniak was there was a company that had a arcade game, and they wanted to shrink the circuit board. And so they paid Steve Jobs because they knew Wozniak was pretty much really talented and can do it. So they paid Steve Jobs, I think it was like $10,000. Steve Jobs went to Wozniak and said, "Hey, yeah, this company paid us $5,000 and we should split the money." So Wozniak splits, shrinks the board. He gets his $2,500. Steve Jobs, gives the company like the new board, the new circuit board. And the messed up thing was Steve Wozniak didn't find out until years later, and supposedly he broke down crying when he found out. It's just one of those things where it's just like, this guy is just, it's a piece of work.
Yeah, that sucks. Capitalists.
I think that game was Breakout, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Oh, so you know the story too. There you go.
I think it was him and Peter Bushnell with Steve Wozniak, and Peter Bushnell and another. I can't remember.
That was Pong.
I want to say Breakout, but I'm not sure. But I know that's the one he was working on with it. I think it was Peter Bushnell he was with.
If there's a good documentary on capitalism and like video games, it's with Love from Russia, and it's the story of Tetris.
Tetris, yeah.
Yes.
Tetris has an incredibly fascinating history. The game of Tetris and how it got out into the world is incredibly fascinating.
I love that movie. It's just like the way that the capitalists totally just ripped him off, and then the Soviet Union came up and was just like, excuse us, no. And then they were like, that guy ended up being.
It was a very big back and forth with that game.
It was, yes. And then, oh my gosh, that was such a wild tale of like capitalist like exploitation, but it was presented so well. It was a great documentary with Russia from Love Tetris. So okay, sorry, no tangents on video games anymore. But
no, I mean that is also definitely an example of how the intellectual creations become globalized, become common property, because so many good games come out of Russia or are made by developers that are in all kinds of different places. Like I worked on a developer team that was US, Sweden, Portugal, Russia, Canada, and you can just do that now. You can just collaborate across the whole expanse of the globe. So that is not a bad thing. Capitalism has made that possible. But of course, it's doing that under these conditions that create just as much conflict as they settle. So the next paragraph, the bourgeoisie, by the rapid improvement of all instruments of production, by the immensely facilitated means of communication, draws all, even the most barbarian nations, into civilization. The cheap prices of commodities are the heavy artillery with which it batters down all Chinese walls, with which it forces the barbarians' intensely obstinate hatred of foreigners to capitulate. It compels all nations, on pain of extinction, to adopt the bourgeois mode of production. It compels them to introduce what it calls civilization into their midst. That is, to become bourgeois themselves. In one word, it creates a world after its own image. What's that about?
That kind of reminds me of that convo we were having about ways to escape poverty,
Mm-hmm.
and how we were all fed the idea that if we behaved and we did what they said, then we would be rescued from poverty. But it was only you, select person, deserve to be moved out of poverty. So
and brought up from the rest of the barbarians.
Well, yeah, like that was kind of the whole. I mean, that's the kind of the point of the magnet program in the school system. Is like they would bust in kids from high achieving test scores or whatever, and then into a different neighborhood, and then but anyways, I'm sorry, I got distracted. But the point was, magnet schools kind of do that. They select kids with high test scores and say you come here. We will give you a better education than everybody else will get.
If you renounce your heritage.
On that note right there, what Maya said, as a youth in Southern California, because of the trouble I got into, I was eligible for certain programs that put me in job placement, everything else. And I was a project to the neoliberals that gave me the jobs and stuff. They put me at a visitor center and chamber of commerce in Ojai, California, which is a kind of a celebrity hangout. And I'm from down the way by the projects, everything else, down the hill a long way. And everybody's like, oh, you're doing so good. You're doing I was lifted up out of where it was, but I'm their pet project. I'm their token. I didn't have to buy clothes for 2 years, but still, because they provide all my office clothes and school clothes and all of that. But they're always let me introduce you to this person. This is a doctor. This is a lawyer. This is But you kind of knew in the back of your head they're just parading you around.
Yeah.
Like a trained savage of some sort.
Yeah, kind of like what the author John Trudell said about when the Europeans came here. Native American author activist John Trudell. He was a founding member of AIM. But he said, we didn't have property and production on the scales the Europeans did until they came here and said, this is the way, and started chopping off hands because they didn't bring enough gold or whatever else back. But it's the same kind of thing. And then what they did to the Cherokee, for instance, put them in the schools and all of that stuff, and they're the civilized tribes.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what
I'm not comparing my struggle to that at all. I'm just parallels.
Yeah. The magnet school program did feel like they were bringing over, because I was from a gang neighborhood. I was from very low income apartments and all that stuff. And then they would put me in these classes with these affluent people and tell me you're special. And it was always a special thing. And they feed you. It's like poison. So
I think that what Nate was saying, I think you can compare it. There's always some other more exclusive, more snooty group in society that will pick you. Like even if you're the kid of millionaires, you might be
Hanging out with the billionaires.
a circle of billionaires or royals, of aristocracy. Yeah. Like, oh, look at this charming little millionaire son and his habits. Isn't he so adorable? He's almost one of us. Like if we kind of squint at him in a certain light, we can almost mistake him for one of us.
I think one of the things that everyone is talking about, which this is about, because it says it compels everyone to adopt this way of life through their own certain means, but it doesn't describe what those means are. And some of them can be force, with the chopping of hands. Others can be, I'll take your kids and throw you into schools. And eventually some of them will become the new class of person, the new bourgeois of the new of this exploited nation. So the process continues.
This is not a peaceful process. It says it compels all nations on pain of extinction to adopt the bourgeois mode of production. So this is like become like us or die. And that is true still. What?
Those who become readily like it are used as tokens to say this is what you should aim for. And that's exactly.
Like you were saying with the native girl who's guiding the conquistadors to Mexico City, Oh,
Malinche, yeah.
Yeah. You want somebody who's like a guide to the natives that can both serve as the boat that marches ahead of the line of animals into the slaughterhouse, because he knows he gets to be going out the other end.
Is that the Cortez story about the native that led him to Montezuma and sold him out?
She's the legend where she was enslaved by the Aztecs, and then basically Cortez bought her because she spoke Mayan and she spoke Nahuatl, which was what the Aztecs were speaking, and then she basically facilitated the destruction of the Aztec Empire.
Yeah.
But
I've heard the story. I didn't know the names.
Oh yeah, La Malinche.
Okay.
But it's already 8. I'm
know.
sorry.
I was about to say the exact same thing. And because on page 17, we're now talking about a slightly different thing again. We're getting to the passage with city and country and stuff. It's still similar, but it's another angle. So maybe let's do that next time.
Okay.
I was going to say that I just found my place in the book we were reading. I got the next one. I finally found it. I didn't want to.
Oh, were you searching this whole time?
Yeah. I got home just in time to get to the meeting, so my phone's about dead. I had no way to get to the manifesto, so I had my book here, and I was silently looking up words, and I was like, bourgeoisie is going to come up a lot, so I can't use that one.
Well, I had my book here, but it was closed the whole time because I would rather hear you guys read so I could focus. But Lars with the German accent reading Marx and shit, and I'm the right amount of high. That was just
it's a trip.
I'll read an extra one for next time. How about that?
Okay. You're excused.
All right. It was good seeing everybody.
Yeah.